Hello, Alexander here. I am math teacher at Mercer Middle School. I am making this video to support 6th grade right now. So if you have Miss Bond, Mr. Evans, Miss Booker, or Mr. Adam, then this will align fairly well with what they're posting on their Schoology account. So to start off, this is the task we're going to work on today. It's around ratios, but I also wanted to make sure you all knew about all the resources available to you as a Mercer student. So first of all, through Seattle Public Schools, you can go to the seattleschools.org website. You can find Schoology groups. If you're currently enrolled at Mercer, we're going to be enrolled in a course already. This is, for example, a Mercer course, Math 7B. So this is one of the 7th grade math classes. And this one has activities posted, activity 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And it's showing you, this 7th grade teacher, Mr. Kochevar, is showing you what it is he's expecting you to be working on. Reminder, nothing is graded. Everything is optional. We're hoping you're doing activities at home. 30 minutes a day is the recommendation. That would be really great if you were engaging with your math learning. Most everything's going to be review, things that you've already learned this year that we think you need to keep up on so that when you come back to school, you'll be ready to go. Other resources we need you to be using. We have Pearson Realize. It is our online textbook. We also have our paper printed textbooks that we had students go home with. If you do not have your paper textbook with you, we're working out a system to get you to be able to pick those up at Mercer when you go to get lunches. We'll be getting that system hopefully up next week. How to access at home. If you are on a home computer, you can sign in by going to pearsonrealize.com. Click the sign in button. Then down here, you're going to click the, oops, I'm sorry, it's a little glitchy, this orange Easy Bridge Plus audio button, or auto button. You're going to search for Seattle School District, and then you're going to log in using your regular username and password, but it has to say your username at seattleschools.org, and then you can use your regular password after that. When you get to that page, your page won't look like mine. Mine's the teacher page, but you'll have access to the assignments that your teacher is giving you from your grade 6 Pearson account. The topics that we've covered so far this year, topic 1, positive rational numbers. They've done some work with integers and rational numbers, expressions, inequalities, a little bit with equations, ratios, and percents. We had not gotten to the geometry for the year so far, so topic 7 and topic 8 were not covered, so we'll mostly be focusing on the review topics here. Some of the other resources that I'm recommending, Illustrative Math. If you search Illustrative Mathematics Grade 6 tasks, you're going to come up with all of these tasks. And here I have the mixing concrete task that we're about to work on. Here we have the solutions to those tasks. So if you're a family member supporting a student at home, you can give them one of these tasks, and then you can go through the solution with them after you've spent some time discussing it, problem solving, working on it. If you're a student working alone or with another sibling, same thing. Do the task, think about it. When you feel like you're stuck or you feel like you're done, go ahead and check out what the solutions are, and it talks you through all the different ways of solving these problems. I started today by going to grade 6. I found these are domains or the topics being covered. Notice that geometry and statistics were not covered at school yet, so we're going to be focusing on the top ones here, ratios, number systems, expressions, equations. So I went to ratios, and I clicked view clusters. There's only one cluster in that area. And then from there, I went to understanding ratios, and I said view tasks. All these different tasks you can look at. You can also go back. We can find tasks that involve unit rates. All these different tasks are organized here. And then there was one more cluster, and you'll see mixing concrete. That's the one I chose today. Any of these would be great. Some of them more difficult than others. Some of them a lot more details than others. So take a look, go through, keep a checklist of the ones you've worked on. We also have a resource I really like called Open Middle. This is also organized by grade level, also organized by topic. So notice exact same, it's all Common Core State Standards, the way they're organized. So I went to ratios and proportional relationships for grade 6. You also have 3 options, English, French, and Spanish. Apologies that there aren't other options for languages available. And then we have these open middle tasks that are kind of game-like. They all have the same structure where there's a task that has these blanks, and then you're filling in the blanks with numbers 1 through 9. So these are blanks, and you're trying to make true statements. So I like the simplicity of the structure of them, but then they get kind of difficult. As you're filling in these numbers, you have to be making sure that this equality is true. So you might have to start by just guessing, or you might think of the structure of the problem. And down here we have hints and we have answers. So great supports. Feedback is really important when you're working on math. So just randomly guessing and then moving on, not great. So it does have hints and answers built in. So let's start one now that we have some general idea of what you should be working on. And remember, I know 6th grade right now, your teachers are posting percent work. So Ms. Bond just put up a video today that I saw an email about. That's great. She's showing you the Pearson resources online. She's showing you the practice problems, helping you with some notes. So please check out Ms. Bond's YouTube page. Links are going to be on Schoology, and I'm sure the other math teachers will link to that as well. So here we go. We have a task from Illustrative Math here. And to start off the task, we always want to read carefully and annotate or underline, circle the main ideas that the problem's talking about. A mixture of concrete is made up of sand and cement in a ratio of 5 to 3. How many cubic feet of each are needed to make 160 cubic feet of concrete mix? So I'm going to read it one more time because I want to see what I underlined and if there's anything I missed. So we're mixing something, we're creating concrete, we're mixing two things together in this ratio, and the question is asking how many cubic feet of each, so I got to keep track of, I need both, are needed to make 160 cubic feet of concrete mix. Well, let's think about here the two parts of a ratio. So when I have a ratio, it's a comparison of two things with the same units. So in this case, I have sand and cement in a ratio, and they make a mixture of concrete. Ratios have parts, and there are those parts that come together to make a whole. So in this case, we have two parts. We have sand, and we have cement. And if I mix sand and cement, I will make a whole. So the whole is the mix in this case. So if I'm going to solve this problem, first I want to set up some sort of visual, some sort of way to understand what's going on. So I'm going to show you a ratio diagram, a tape diagram in this case. So I'm going to start with my sand. So I'm not going to actually draw sand in this case. I'm going to think about how many parts of sand I have. So when they say sand and concrete, and they say a ratio of 5 to 3, what they're saying is that the first thing that was mentioned was sand, and the second thing that was mentioned is cement. So I know that they're saying there is 5 parts of sand for every 3 parts of cement. So for sand, I'm going to say, okay, well, there's 5 parts of sand. So I'm going to draw a diagram here. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm not being super careful. I'm trying to model to you what you'd be doing at home. So as you're following along and you're trying to draw yourself a diagram of the sand, don't worry that it's not perfect. We're going to try as close as we can. And then we're going to go with cement. I'm actually going to change colors so you can keep track here. So if I have sand and then I have cement, I'm going to imagine that this sand is laying out in some bucket or some container, and then my cement is going to get mixed into it. So it's going to make a total amount. So I have 3 parts of cement, it says in my ratio, for every 5 parts of sand. So the thing I am trying to be careful of is if I'm saying this is 1 part of sand, see the size of that rectangle? I'm going to make sure the cement also shows 1 part of cement, so that every part here is the same size as every part here. So in my sketch, I'm thinking to myself, well, if I mix this together, then I'm going to have, let's say this is 5 cubic feet of sand. This would be 3 cubic feet of cement. I would have a hole. In this case, how much would be in that hole? So I want you to think for a second, how would I figure that out? If this is 1 cubic feet for each one of these, and 1 cubic feet for each one of these, What's my whole amount? I'm going to give you about 3 seconds to think about that. So because this is live, or in this case, I'm sorry, not live, I can't really talk to you about it, but we'll see if what you were thinking matches what I have on my page. So in this case, I have a whole amount. This whole thing, if I were to take the whole thing, that would be a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That is 8 cubic feet is my whole. So in this case, I'm going to go with my whole amount is 8 cubic feet, and my parts were 5 cubic feet and 3 cubic feet. So now I've got a whole and I've got my parts, but the problem is the problem was asking us to say if I need 160 cubic feet of concrete mix, I don't have enough. I've made one batch. A batch would be an amount you've mixed based off the ingredients and the size of the ingredients, but it's not enough. So I have to think about how am I somehow going to get from 8 cubic feet all the way up to 160 cubic feet. Now I know this isn't percents, but percents are related to this. So in a percent you have 2 parts that are being compared, and in percent you're saying compared to 100. In this case we're saying these parts can be compared to the whole amount. So that's the reason I'm doing ratios right now, is for you to understand parts and wholes, so that when you're working on your percents with your teacher on your course on Schoology, you can have that reminder of what ratios are. So as we're thinking about this, if we have 5 parts sand, 3 parts cement, and it makes a total of 8 cubic feet, we have to scale up or figure out how many batches would I have to actually make to get to 160. So if I'm going to get from 8 to 160, I have to multiply by 20. So imagine that I've taken these 8 cubic feet of total mix and I've made the batch once and then twice and then 3 times and 4 times, and I'm going to make more and more and more and more until I end up with a total of 160 cubic feet. Now I knew it was going to be times 20 because I looked at 8 and 160 and I said, how many times would I have to create 8 cubic feet before I have 160? And I did some mental math and got 20. If you didn't know the answer to that, you could do a division to figure it out. So I have 160 cubic feet, and I want to say how many 8 cubic feet amounts would I have to divide in order to figure out how many batches I'd have to make. So if I do 160 divided by 8, 160 divided by 8, 8 goes into 16 twice, 0's left over, well, 20. So that tells me I'd have to multiply by 20. But the problem is that if I'm going to multiply everything by 20, the whole batch, it means the parts also have to get multiplied by 20. We'll talk about why in a second. That would mean I need 20 times the cement. 3 times 20 is 60. And I'd need, cubic feet. And I need 20 times of sand. If I were to only increase the amount of cement and I didn't increase the amount of sand, the concrete mix would not be a proper recipe mix. It wouldn't work right. I'd have to increase every part of my whole in order to get the right mix. So 5 times 20 is 100. And hey, look, this makes sense because 100 cubic feet plus the 60 cubic feet makes a total of 160 cubic feet. 5 cubic feet plus 3 cubic feet makes 8 cubic feet. So let's make sure we've answered our question. How many cubic feet of each are needed to make 160 cubic feet of concrete mix? So I need, in red, my sand to be 100 cubic feet, and I would need my cement to be 60 cubic feet. So if I look over here, oh look, I could think of this as 20, 20, 20. So 20 cubic feet, 3 parts of those would make 60. And I could think of it as, for sand, I've got 20, 20, 20, 20, and 20. 20 cubic feet, and there's 5 parts of those, makes 100. So if I count all this up, there's another way to check my work, or think about it. If this is how I solve the problem, I could do it that way too. 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120, 140, 160, 160 cubic feet. So that's an example of multiple ways you could solve this problem. If I was a student doing this at home and I wanted to check my work, I would go to this task that I was just working on. There's the task here, and I'm going to come down here and look at how they solved it. Not the same as how I did it, but that's okay. So it says we can see in the last column that one needs 100 cubic feet of sand, that's what we got, and 60 cubic feet of cement, also what we got, to make 160 cubic feet. So what's great about that is that what we did here got the same answer, but it wasn't solved the same way. They used this table, 5 to 3, 2 parts make a total of 8, and then they continued to scale up, counting by 5, 5, 5, 5, until they got to 100, and counting by 3 until they got to 60, so they could make a total of 160. They also have another way of solving this, using a scale factor. That's more how I thought about it personally. I used 20 as my scale factor. I scaled up my 8, scaled up my 5, and scaled up my 3, and got my total. So if I was a student at home without a teacher working with me, I could look down here and see how they solved it and compare it to my own. So in summary, please make sure you're checking your Schoology page. Make sure you're using Pearson. You'll have some assignments on Pearson that you can use to practice. You can also look up some tasks, and you can look up some play problems that you could do some problem solving with. See you next time.